So think about how much the way we work and the way we make decisions has changed over the past few years. Technology is no longer sitting in the background. It's right at the center of how leaders plan, decide, and move forward. Our panel, AI and Automation, What Every CXO Needs to Know to Stay Ahead, will share how leaders are using these tools in practical ways to simplify decisions, improve efficiency, and stay competitive in a fast-moving environment. Please join me in welcoming our panelists for this session. Dragana Linfield, Senior Director, Technology Consulting at Ernst Young. Andreas Fornwald, CEO and Board Director at StarCharge. Vivek Mahendra, Managing Partner of Vivikta Advisory and Creatives, and Prafull, Global Head of AI Strategy at Radiant Digital. Moderating this session is Kevin Carlson, Partner and AI Practice Lead at TechCXO. Welcome to the stage. Come on up.
We're going to need, good?
You want to sit
I'll
here?
sit right here.
Yeah, right here. Okay.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming out to this panel. My name is Kevin Carlson. I've been in the tech world for about a little over 40 years. I started out in software development, took my first CTO role in 1999. I've held 4 additional roles since then. I've been working with AI since 2014, back when it was called machine learning, and have worked with it at the code level. I invented a couple of models for a client of mine in 2020 in the media and entertainment industry, both of which were patented. So I spent a lot of time in this field. Joining me today, we have, to my left is Andreas Fornwald, CEO and Board Director of StarCharge. Dragana Linfield, Senior Director, Technology and Consulting with Ernst Young. Prafull Khare, say that right? Oh, awesome, good, okay, all right. Global Head of AI Strategy for Radiant Digital, and then Vivek Mahendra, Managing Partner, Vivikta Advisory and Creatives. I'm going to open with asking each of them to introduce themselves briefly to the audience.
You want to go next?
Yeah, I can go. My name is Andreas Fornwald. I'm a Chief Development Officer of the global company StarCharge, the leader in EV charging and big battery solutions for utilities. I have 30 years of experience in energy business, started 30 years ago at Siemens as a commissioning engineer for gas turbines and progressed then in sales, business development, strategic alliances, and later did my MBA in Stanford and worked for private equities and private equity portfolio companies in energy business. And now I'm here and happy to be here.
I'll go next. My name is Prafull Khare. I'm Vice President and Head of AI and Digital Transformation for a company called Radiant Digital. I own multiple practices, which is all about application development, data management, innovation lab, and marketing, along with organizational transformation, and we are infusing AI in each and every aspect of those practices. Besides that, I'm also an executive advisor on an AI startup and helping another AI startup to get on its feet from the ground up in the healthcare space.
Hi, good evening. My name is Vivek Mahendra. As a profession, I am an enterprise architect. As an enterprise architect, I've been in my life bridging the strategy to execution gap. So that's basically my role as organization. I am a scholar at Carnegie Mellon. Have a couple of patents to my name, and these are typically in the supply chain, hospital supply chain, and the healthcare ecosystem spaces. Predominantly as part of the whole AI ecosystem, work with the CXO fraternity in terms of guiding them through the process of adoption, because a lot of what is glittering is not always gold. So that's I try to bring in some level of rationality to the whole approach.
Great, thank you. So I want to open with one question for each of you. In one sentence, what's the single biggest misconception executives have about AI and AI automation right now? Andreas?
Yeah, I can answer this question pretty simple. We think AI can make decision for us or support us in decision. AI is just a tool.
I would say that most executives think that the success of AI depends on technology, while in fact 70% of that depends on organizational transformation.
Great.
I actually agree with both of my fellow panelists, but on top of that, what I'm going to say, what executives need to understand is AI velocity is not equal to AI value. Right now, they are spanning across multiple pilots, just trying to do each thing and everything in the field of AI without even realizing that what value they actually want to achieve out of it.
From my standpoint, I think the critical point is it's not a quarter by quarter miracle. So it's a larger multi-horizon transformation, and that's how we need to visualize it.
Dragana, first question for you. Most enterprises have dozens of AI experiments running. What separates the ones that scale from the ones that stall?
So everybody's really, we mentioned not everything is gold that shines. Most of enterprises have already gone through piloting so many interesting use cases, and those use cases probably did not return much value, and they because they did not approach to that exercise in a structured way. So first of all, every pilot or use case that the company decides to do, amongst hundreds of them they are thinking of, should be always linked to the KPIs and measurable value. So the use case should be implemented only if it returns the measurable value. That could be the revenue growth, that could be improvement of customer experience, cost reduction, etc. The second common mistake is that it's very much siloed. It's never cross-functional. People don't talk, and they normally decide to digitalize one silo. So they copy the virtual assistant and they copy the current organization instead of rethinking how certain processes are done and reinventing processes. Then I think it's also a mistake in terms of operating model, because the organizations that adopted federated operating model, which is they have a centralized center of excellence that looks after the governance, the policies and everything, and then they have the use case that belongs actually to certain business units. Those work the most because they can scale it easily. So they kind of create a model that can be copied for the next use case, etc. And other companies also dilute very much the money that they put in one use case, so none of them then return the value because they don't really focus on some of the use cases that could really make a big difference. And what else can I say here? So, and of course data, but we can talk about data later. It's very important, the data there, and people. I already mentioned people because they have to look after the people, reskill them, and explain the benefits of AI, and somehow prohibit shadow AI as well. So that's from my perspective.
Great, thank you. Andreas, next question's for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Who should own AI strategy inside the organization? CTO, CDO, a dedicated AI leader, or should the business units themselves own it?
So I think the AI should be implemented bottom up. So I think that the strategy and the decisions about the AI should be delegated to the lowest possible level. So business unit, definitely business unit. Every business unit should define their AI application, of course, in accordance to the corporate policy. But put a CTO or a central guy who decides on AI, especially in big organization, makes little sense in my opinion.
Just to follow on to that, so
Sure.
if you're growing it from the bottom up, how do you avoid the silos that Dragana was speaking about?
And that's exactly why we need AI. AI is general. AI is not silo positioned on a silo. So AI will help breaking the silos. In my opinion, in my experience, when I was a CEO of Duasan, we had a lot of silos. With help of AI, with help of ChatGPT, with just simple language models, we broke the silos.
Good, interesting. Vivek, next question's for you. What is the honest conversation that CXOs need to have with their boards about AI investment timelines and expectations?
Yeah, so I think as I kind of opened my statement there, so it's an enterprise design challenge. And when you're talking to a board, obviously the expectation is on one dimension, they are hearing all the good things that are happening out in the market. But there are things that are happening out in the market, no doubts about it. What is important is it contextual to your situation? And I think that's very, very important. Yesterday, Prafull mentioned context is the moat. So is it contextual to the situation is a very important part. So I'll maybe put a small anecdote to that. We were in a few weeks back, we were trying to also, we were in a board meet and we were trying to maybe evaluate the ability to operationalize a product for the operation control center. And we were trying to look at, is there a possibility for us to do in an aviation sector and to do a possibility to do a MVP cut on it, a minimal viable product cut on it. And using AI and other related techniques that will come in part of the play, because obviously there is a big play on machine learning, a big play on neural networks that plays in terms of prediction of a failure and so on and so forth. And we were saying, is there a possibility that we can do these portions and not do the other portions per se? I think as an enterprise architect, it becomes very important from my standpoint that we have to show the mirror and to show the mirror in as stark reality as possible. Basically, it's a three-dimensional process. So what we're saying is that as an approach, when you look at any such initiatives, and I've kind of broadened it from the case to the reality of our enterprise, you have to take it through a series of maybe transformational states. The first one of them is typically a productivity transformation state. So you look at what are some of those opportunities that you have, which could be point solutions, does not require a significant organizational overhaul, and be able to give you certain improvements in the short run. So typically what you may call is the productivity transformation horizon. I think the second important aspect that we look at is the process transformation horizon. Now this is very, very important because a lot of time we try to fit a solution to a human-based process, right? Typically, it's a problem that we face currently. We were designed for something. You remember our ERP days? When we did the first set of requirements, we tried to give the requirements based on either out-of-the-box process and otherwise we tried to do a custom force fit, building almost a new ERP for an entity because we wanted to force fit the ERP to the way organizations function will happen. But I think in AI, you don't have that luxury. In AI, you need to do an AI first or AI native process definition. And that is the one that becomes the foundational state. So that's the second, I would call as a horizon that I have to look at. And the third one is typically the enterprise horizon. Now, enterprise horizon is very critical. Dragana mentioned just now about a fastest on human change. She mentioned about maybe controls and role redefinition and so on and so forth. But I think important constructs are around your data integrity, data privacy, and your data domiciliary as an element. So that becomes a very important aspect in terms of how you bring in, God bless you. Yeah. how you bring in the transformation from a standpoint of not just process changes, but the way your organization data has to reflect that, the way your organization governance looked at, and so on and so forth. I think a combination of these three facets are very critical to be spoken to the board, and then the board should be asked a lot of questions. So what is that you look for in the next 4 quarters, like 4 months, 8 months, 12 months, and thereafter? They should be asked this question because that's where you have to start resetting their expectations. They should be told, yes, there will be improvements, but improvements are in that sequence of the dimensionality that I just spoke about. The fact that you will be able to get these things done, we have to get these things done with a proper governance structure. You can't think governance as an afterthought, right? And I think all of these tend to be, it becomes sometimes more educational, but has to be educational in context of the organization. I think that becomes an important facet. So that would be a way I would typically, or rather, I do my engagements with my clients.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to add something on that. Every transformation is about people, process, and technology.
Yeah.
The way Vivek highlighted it. But often of the time with AI, what is happening? There is so much noise in the market that people are skipping the people and the process part, directly jumping into the technology. And then they are not seeing the results.
Prafull, that's a great lead into the next question. Most companies are adopting AI, but some are having trouble adapting to AI. What's the difference to you, and why does it matter more than what model you might choose?
Absolutely. See, this is exactly the point what I was trying to make out to Vivek's statement. Most of the companies are adopting AI, not adapting it. And the difference is that companies are going and saying that, hey, I'm going to buy a Copilot license. This is going to be a silver bullet going to solve all of my problem. Then when it is not working, they are going 5,000 cursor licenses, 10,000 Devin licenses, and still they are not able to see the results. The biggest reason why that is happening, because they are trying to stitch AI into the brittle workflow, the human-centric workflow what they are having, rather than designing and training their developer to use these tools optimally, which is like building the context first and then jumping into the model. And that's where I'm making this differentiation between the successful project and the failed project, that both the projects are doing exceptionally good in the initial stage when you're going from 0 to 1, but people who are adapting it with the context is going from 1 to 10, and people who are just buying the licensing and doing the check mark, they are stopping after 0 to 1 and not able to scale.
And if I may add here,
Certainly.
with AI, it's like with anything else in the software business, garbage in, garbage out. So you have to prepare very well what you get with AI, to prepare to describe the problem well and to word it well.
And I also wanted to add maybe the opposite side of it. Some people think that AI is so magical and is going to fix broken processes.
Absolutely.
And they don't understand that they either have to fix them themselves before they apply that, or they have to reinvent that process.
AI can certainly help processes break more quickly.
Yes.
Right? So, Dragana, this question's for you. Data readiness is sort of an unglamorous prerequisite for using AI. What's the minimum viable data posture a company needs before AI investments start to pay off?
So as already mentioned, garbage in, garbage out. So the most important part is the data about generative AI and ML, because it really depends on data, and the decisions made will be inaccurate. However, from the other hand, companies also are reluctant to even start AI project because they think they need to have perfect data. So none of those two things are true. So what has to happen is that they have to specify the use case that they want to go for, and then select the data that they need for that particular use case. So it doesn't mean that they will need enterprise-wide data, but they will need the data that applies to that particular use case. The second thing is that their data have to be in real time, because it has to happen at the moment they have to make the decision. And they have to also identify all of the necessary data depending on that use case. So for example, if we're talking about banking and about identifying the fraud situation, that also has to be timely, because even with the perfect data, if it is not happening at the moment when it has to be made a decision, yes or no, then it's irrelevant. And the same thing is in the health industry. If they have incomplete set of data, then the decision cannot be made. That's really, data is what models thrive or don't thrive. So it's.
Will it be easy to say that the requirement for AI is not the perfect data, but the connected data and the freshness of the data?
Exactly, the connected. So, but again, it's like depends on which case you have to select the connected data.
Absolutely.
And I think also another big problem is, so the first thing we have to ask ourselves when we want to implement the use case is, do we have the data that we need? Can we get it? And is it real time? Because sometimes we do have a data, but it belongs to the legacy system, which cannot be obtained. at the time, but they have to be connected.
Andreas, next question for you.
Sure.
As a CEO who makes real budget decisions, how do you personally separate signal from noise when your consultants and vendors are all telling you AI is urgent?
Oh, of course. First of all, you have to define your needs in the company. And you don't define it by the outside consultants, you define it by your trusted employees or whatever. So before we go in a company to AI, we need to know why we need the AI, what it will save us, and the most important, AI, for us to start with AI, you have to know AI is not eliminating jobs. AI is eliminating roles and changing roles. So you have to have a structure, a new organizational structure that works with this AI.
When you say it's not eliminating jobs, yet we see in the news that some CEOs are letting people go and saying it's because of AI. Is that the real reason, or do you think that's just a front?
That's a front, not the real reason.
I have a good example for that.
Yeah,
Nobody can be as brutal as Andreas.
very clear. I have an assistant. She did my schedule. Now I do my schedule with AI. I do it 3 times better. But I retrained the assistant. She's doing a fantastic preparation for workshops. It's all about training. It's all about repurposing the people. The people are invaluable. AI has a value.
I totally agree with that because I think AI is going to maybe eliminate the low entry jobs, but then those people are going to be repurposed and do much higher jobs they could possibly do. And I really like the example of the coders because we know that now you can do vibe coding and you don't really need to look into the syntax. But that's a really good thing because then you can focus on a product and a customer experience and make it customer-centric. And when people say that the jobs for coders is at risk, that's because for me, the coder is not there to code. The coder is there to solve problems. And if he can do it faster, that means he better finds more problems to solve.
Absolutely. I love the way she put it together.
We had a very interesting conversation on this yesterday. We were talking about what are we taught as engineers. We are taught as engineers not to code. We are taught as engineers to solve problems using mathematics or logic. So if we continue to expand that, if that's what the coders will do today, then a vibe code or cursor will really help you. But if you don't do it, then you're actually putting no boundaries to what will get produced out of it.
Vivek, I want to stay with you for just a second here. So how do you evaluate whether a process is a good candidate for AI versus traditional automation like business process automation?
So I think this is a very interesting one because it's almost like killing a fly with a bullet or something like that. That's what people try to do sometimes now. Whenever we look at an organization, as an enterprise architect, I always go down to the basic tenets of the design of the entity. So when I look at that, there are certain parts of the organization or certain processes in the organization are very structured from step A to step Z, whatever that is to happen there. Which means that in all practical purposes, you know that what's the expected input, what's the expected output, and largely the output will remain in a particular range. We typically call that as a stable process. So when we look at something like that, and it's a Six Sigma principle, you typically define a specification limit and the process performs within that, then it becomes a fairly stable process for you. Take that as an example. Now, if that is an example, you have most of the thing very deterministic in it. Normally, our recommendation is if you intend to go for automation, those are very, very interesting plays in automation. Now, when you look at any of these processes in an organization, not 100% or not all of them will be so deterministic, which means that a hybrid approach is very, very important, which means that if you have a process and its outputs can be derived, they may not be absolute, but they can be derived, then you have a good ability to maybe start looking at AI integration along with automation to be kind of brought in play as a solution. But if either of it doesn't exist, that means neither it is deterministic, neither it is probabilistic, then it means very clearly redesign. So first redesign, then you come back to maybe choice of an option, whether I should automate or whether I should bring in AI-driven automation and things like that.
I fully agree. AI implementation is a journey. It's not a switch overnight. You start with repetitive processes, simple processes, and you take your team, your employees, your coworkers along in this journey. And the journey can be years.
Hey,
I
Prafull,
also agree with Vivek's perspective, right? And Vivek, the way you are trying to put it together, if you have the deterministic output, then automate it. If you need judgment, then use AI.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it will be like killing a fly with a cannon. Very nice perspective.
Yeah, Prafull, just on the build versus buy decision, how do you advise clients on that versus maybe partnering for AI capabilities, and how has that changed in the last year?
I'm absolutely, based on the tons of experience what I'm getting in this space, I'm going to summarize it in one line. Build your context, buy the model, which is a commodity, and partner for speed. So if a problem has already been solved by somebody in the industry, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Just build the partnership, use them. You don't need to become a competition to Anthropic or OpenAI. You need to leverage them to achieve your business outcome.
How would you answer that, though, for a very specialized use case where a company's data is absolutely critical to getting the right inference? So how would you advise them, to partner with a company like, Anthropic or OpenAI versus taking an open source model, say like Llama, and building layers on top of it and retraining it? And that'll give them more privacy, but how would you advise them in that case?
So, and this is, interestingly, this is the same conversation I'm having with a healthcare company. And what I am proposing them, because healthcare is a heavily regulated industry, they don't need to go either or approach. What they need to do is a hybrid approach, where they are having combination of multiple SLMs like Mistrals and Phi-4 and so on, so that the sensitive data they can process locally on their GPU, whereas the high reasoning requirement what they have can go to companies like Anthropic or OpenAI, since they are the partner with OpenAI. In that way, you can get best of both the worlds, that your data is secure and private, the sensitive data, and on top of that, the jobs which require high reasoning and the compute power, you can leverage what Anthropic and OpenAI has already built.
Yeah, I just want to agree with you, because recently I went to NASA conference and they're trying to solve 187 technology problems to get them to Mars, to Moon and the Mars. And they told me that they use small language models themselves so that they avoid the cost and then keep the whole information privately in their own data centers. And then they also use various techniques like a RAG, retrieval augmented generation, so that the company-specific information stays there. And they only, when they find the similarities using embeddings, they only send those similarities to the large language model. That way, they only communicate very small amount of information there to make the meaning there.
Given an important part, I just want to bring it there. So I think the whole thing stems back to the principles or entity definitions. So I think the way we look at it is that when we look at data governance at the base goes back to your data structures and data attributes, and it kind of helps you very clearly decide what are confidential, what are open to public, and what are critical to your business. If we have the classification done very well, your ability to still do masked data exposed on maybe a controlled environment, right? So it doesn't really, it's a focus on clear demarcation of all PI, all the 18 PI elements that are there as a part of the whole ecosystem. In healthcare, you still have ability to get a good population view if you are able to maybe bring in this level of demarcation in the way that you build your data management. So that's why a lot of times what maybe we always prescribe is relook at your underlying structures. Address the problems there, because if you address problems there, anything in the outskirts will not be able to maybe make any major damage to you.
Absolutely. The point what Dragana already made, right? Garbage in, garbage out at a scale. And I'm telling you, as we are moving forward in this AI journey, one word which is going to define a lot of things, tokenomics. That's where companies are going to really bleed money and going to take substantial action in next 2 to 3 years.
Yes, I also want to build on that, because the way that LLMs, the frontier models are charging enterprise is by token. So every word is broken into like different tokens in every context, and it all looks very small price. But when you multiply that by big scale, it's a huge cost, and that's another reason to go for small language models as well.
I want to come back to the AI eliminating jobs question, and Andreas, you mentioned your assistant, but where else do you see automation eliminating roles versus reshaping them? And what are you telling your teams other than your assistant inside your company?
So automation, since its inception, since the 19th century, was eliminating roles, not jobs, and shifting jobs. So that's nothing new. We have it every 30 years. A new thing is coming, and we have a need of less people in one place and more people in another place. So the repetitive roles, the roles that can be simple replicated, will go away. And we are just going another step and another step, and more creative roles will need it, and people will have more opportunities to shape their roles, to have more time to do what they really like to do, and to get away from this boring task. Well, when AI is coming, a lot of things are changing, but it's changing for the better. Give you some example. We are having here a panel. Normally, all day, somebody has to write a transcript, send a transcript to everybody. Everybody has to approve it. Now it goes automatically.
Dragana, what AI capability are most companies ignoring today that you think will be non-negotiable in a couple of years?
I'll give the quick answer to kind of not make you not wait. It's going to be agentic world. And most companies are using AI today as a calculator. It's a single intervention. They say, find me this document, or do the search on it, respond to this question. It's a kind of a very reactive approach. And what is happening, 35%, in fact, enterprises are already building agentic solutions, which means they have a process, and they want to, they use agents to complete that process end to end. So today, before we do that, we actually introduce friction, because when we just put one agent and one solution in one point, that means somebody has to review it, it breaks the process, it's a human in the loop, yes, I understand, but what is coming is going to be agentic world. So that means that everything, that I'm going to have my own agent who is going to be shopping for me. The company is going to have an agent who is going to represent the vendor to buy from. Everything is going to be agentic. So I think it's very important that, like you were saying, Vivek, that the company starts thinking about the architecture and about the governance, how to actually create agentic solution for their problems, which means they have to worry about the orchestration layer, the integration layer, the governance, and the data.
Yes. Yes.
See, I'm not sure about anybody else here, but if there is an agent for me which can take my wife for shopping, I would be the happiest person on earth.
Good one.
Hey, Prafull, so you're focused on AI strategy.
Yes.
When a company creates that role or function for the first time, what do most of them get wrong about the scope and the mandate?
See, and that's the discussion I had with my own CEOs and a couple of other board members, right? And it always starts with, hey, we are lagging behind in the journey. We need to adopt AI. And they don't focus on what problem they are going to solve and what is the outcome they are expecting. And for me, that's the recipe of disaster. For me, any AI-led transformation should have three critical elements. Number one, clear outcome. Number two, domain knowledge, which you can extract out from your workflow and the institutional the knowledge base, what you have with the employees and documents and everything. And third is AI. If you miss any of those, then that is going to lead to a disaster. You are not going to get the desired outcome there.
Okay. Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the same, because the company should start from the problem, and then maybe they can use AI to solve it, or machine learning. Other companies are also using generative AI to solve the problem that can be sorted by using machine learning, which existed much before this is existing
Much
there.
more proven methodology.
And even more and cheaper, and it solves a lot of problems. Probably 80% of the problems can be sorted, and it's extensively being used anyway to prevent the problems. So most people use it to understand the problem, but this one is actually using the patterns, and the data can actually predict the problem and prevent it through next best action.
Great, thank you. Vivek, when you walk into an organization that tells you, hey, we're behind on AI, what does the first 90 days look like?
So I think this is where I marry the traditional versus the agile frameworks. Right? I'll tell you, I'll give you the example how I want to look at it. Maybe when I walk into an organization, first of all, I think we have to elevate the fear that they are not behind. So let's understand in what they call as the intelligence era, as we are talking about now, we are in the first 5 years of typically a 20-year quinquennium that happens. Right now, if you look at any of the previous such things, these 5-6 years in the beginning are typically what we call as the exploratory phase of any uptake. If you typically look at the graph of adoption, that's how typically it will be seen. So there have been many initiatives across the organization, but if you would look at it, any organization is in the state of maturity, maybe less than 1% currently, globally. Now, it's important to kind of make them realize that don't get excited about this. You have to bring in pragmatism to this whole approach before you get excited. I've done a small series on leadership types, archetypes. One of the leadership archetypes I kind of mentioned are pragmatist, effervescent leadership types, right? So that's the leadership type that should be ruling organizations, correct? No doubts about it. But they should be ruling organizations with a very good control ecosystem in their organization. Basically, a sounding board says, okay, yes, we would want to do it. That's how we can look forward, right? We can say that there are no doctors needed in the hospitals. That's a vision. Absolutely, yes, and it's possibly achievable too. But as you look at it, you have to kind of do a gradation. So maybe the way I look at it when I kind of take up an assignment of nature is that traditional model is do an as-is state assessment. So look at your problem you're trying to solve, not the aspiration that you have. It's very, very important. If we try to merge that process, the first 3 months, or basically the first 30 days will be a disaster because we'll not be able to kind of give any specific outputs there. I think the second, like the next 30 days is typically more in terms of looking at, so out of your whole ecosystem, you believe there are, say, these 10 processes which are big bottleneck steps for you. So if those are the big bottleneck steps, which will have the fastest ability to deliver a value with the least disruption. So you typically look at the next 30 days is more in terms of identifying what would be those 3 or 4 that you want to pick up and run. And the next 90 days, next 30 days is typically the path we call as don't jump into a solution. So you almost create a mini ecosystem for AI governance and adoption for those chosen 2 or 3 things, and those should be put out as a plan to the detail. That means what we're saying is, don't think governance is an afterfact. Don't think KPI definition of a process improvement is an afterfact. Don't think that since you're only doing a POC, you don't think about organizational scalability as an afterthought. So the way I've kind of seen it is that go for as-is state assessment, not aspirational. Look at maybe the most critical processes and identify the 1 or 2 that you would want to maybe pick up. And the third one is ensure that when you pick this up as a plan and as you come out of a 90-day thing, you should have a plan which does not address only the process in isolation, but the process in totality with the relevant structures like governance, everything in place so that when you scale by replicating this model, not recreating this model. Typically, that's where most of the POC graveyards have been created.
Great, thank you. We are just about at time, but I want to wrap up with one question. Same question for each of you. I want to start with you, Vivek, and we'll just move this way. If you could give every CXO in this room one piece of advice they could act on now, what would it be?
I would want them to be a little more aware.
How so?
So what I would want them to do is that they should, like the way they run their business, they should also consume information, filter it, and define what is relevant for them and what is irrelevant.
The same thing what I was trying to communicate throughout. Your context is your mode, and adapt the AI. Don't adopt a tool. That's the message I'll give it to every CXO.
For me, will be think big and see how can you become AI native company, because if you don't, you're going to be replaced by AI native competition.
And I would suggest to all of you, ask your employees, ask the working level to experiment with AI, to get in and to get familiar with AI as soon as possible. So everybody should experiment, starting with the simple transcripts or simple email writing models.
Great, and I'll add my opinion on this one too. The big one for me is so many executives out there just read the headlines. And there's so much hype around this stuff, but there's also so much possibility. So educate yourselves, learn about what this really does, learn what the pitfalls are, and apply it appropriately. I'd like to thank the panel and thank all of you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for moderating us.
Thank you for your moderation.
Certainly.
Thank you.